Alright, so this video is going to be an overview of one Carlos Principe Cuadras, the current WBC Super Flyweight Champion of the world, a fighter that's going to have a very big fight coming up here on September 10th against Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez that has not only championship level implications as far as flyweight and super flyweight goes, but pound for pound implications as well, considering that Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez is currently ranked as the pound for pound #1 on several pundit expert lists amongst the major boxing media, essentially. So Carlos Cuadras, before he ever turned pro, managed to get himself a gold medal in the 2007 Pan American Games. Defeated some pretty tough opponents on his way to getting there, including Claudio Marrero in the finals, a fighter from the Dominican Republic, who of course a lot of people may know now as being one of the higher ranking featherweight contenders. Guy with a tough loss to it was a bit of an upset loss to Jesus Cuellar, one of the current WBA. I think he's the regular champion, if I'm remembering off the top of my head right. But anyway, he defeated Marrero on his way to winning that gold medal. Also, interestingly enough, has a win over Guillermo Rigondeaux at those games. It was a win by walkover. Guillermo Rigondeaux didn't show up for the win or the fight, and then later wound up getting arrested, had that whole issue go down where he was accused of trying to defect, and he later actually defected at a later date, once it actually they were able to properly plan everything out. In any case, Carlos Cuadras managed to get that gold medal. That was enough to get some interest from the major professional promotions, in particular Taken Promotions of Japan, who of course is known for being like the top rank of Japan, or the Golden Boy a few years ago of Japan, the PBC of Japan essentially. They're the main promotional company. They're not solely the only force in Japan, of course. There's a few other promotional companies that are pretty big as well, but they are definitely the biggest with the most storied history of the bunch. So Carlos Cuadras managed to sign up with them. They've signed up others like Edwin Valero, Jorge Linares, Ricardo Lopez, and they worked with Ricardo Lopez anyway, because Lopez was actually signed with Don King. But in any case, Cuadras signed up with them. Had most of his early fights in Mexico. Also had a few in Japan as well. Defeated some pretty good fighters on his way up the ladder, essentially on his way up the rankings. Of course, didn't really fight his most tough competition up until right around 2012, where he fought against Ronald Barrera, who is a guy that was a former elite level contender at 105 and 108 pounds. He fought a lot of the who's who of those weight classes at the time. He fought guys like Ivan Calderon, Yutaka Nida. If I remember right, I think he may have fought Joe Yi, possibly Eagle Kiowa. I do remember he fought almost like a who's who of the strawweight and light flyweight divisions of around the mid-2000s. Very tough fighter. Carlos Cuadras managed to TKO him in 7, as you should as a young fighter on the come up, facing an older fighter from whose prime was truthfully at a lower weight class. He managed to do so, and do so well. Of course, then went on to defeat a couple other guys that were kind of high level contenders, not necessarily elite fighters, but very high level contenders, top 10, top 15 level contenders at about flyweight or super flyweight, and Fernando Lumacad of the Philippines, and Victor Zaleta of Mexico. The Zaleta win in particular is one that's notable because of the fact that he actually fought Zaleta right after Leo Santa Cruz did. Zaleta had taken a good payday to move up to bantamweight to fight Leo Santa Cruz at a time when Santa Cruz was an early in his title run as a bantamweight champion. Santa Cruz had some trouble with Zaleta early, who was able to outbox him at distance, at range. A little bit more of a kind of a stick and move type fighter is Zaleta, but Santa Cruz was eventually able to overwhelm and stop him in the 9th round. Cuadras fought Zaleta a few months later and actually stopped him in the 7th round. Didn't even have as much trouble with Zaleta, in my opinion, as Leo Santa Cruz did. So for Cuadras, who's a bit more of a stick and move type fighter, a bit more of a finesse type fighter, guy that uses speed and distance more so than strength and stamina work rate to to outclass a guy or beat down a guy. The fact that he was able to stop Zaleta more quickly than a overwhelming force like Leo Santa Cruz is pretty impressive. Of course, went on to eventually fight Wisaksil Wangek, also known as Sisakit Zorongvisai. He's a fighter from Thailand, so he has a couple of names there, given his who sponsors him and what gym he's with. Very tough fight. This was probably the toughest fight of Carlos Cuadras' career, and it's definitely one of the fights that I would suggest anybody that's interested in really seeing what Cuadras is about would watch. Along with the Zaleta win. This was a tough fight. It wound up being a unanimous technical decision after 8 rounds because there was cuts over Cuadras' left eye from a clash of heads. It was early on. Wangek gave him some trouble. He came in as the champion. He's a vicious puncher, a vicious body puncher. He's a guy with a 90% knockout ratio over opponents. You don't necessarily see that, especially often at the lower weight classes. But this is a guy who was, just an absolute clear knockout artist at super flyweight and below. Wangek is a guy that just, he'll crush you. He had a recent fight, I believe it was back in around like February or March of this year, where he hit a guy to the body. The guy immediately started projectile vomiting all over the ring. The ref immediately stopped it because, there's no way that guy was going to be able to continue. Wangek was going to like literally beat the guy's guts out of him. So Cuadras' win over Wangek was a solid one. He gave him some trouble early because Wangek is a puncher. He's a good pressure fighter as well. A little bit more of a one shot at a time guy, though, not necessarily a combination volume puncher the way that Gonzalez is, but a very big puncher in terms of one-shot power. I'd say definitely more so than Gonzalez is. Cuadras is able to take a couple of shots. He got hit clean a couple of times, and he very quickly realized that his modus operandi, essentially, of being able to defeat Wangek was going to be to box, to box and move on him. And he did so, and he managed to get the technical decision victory. It was a little bit of an abbreviated win for him because it didn't go the full 12. Wangek, of course, would like a rematch. He hasn't quite gotten it yet because he flirted with fighting at bantamweight as well. But it seems like now that Gonzalez is moving up, possibly Estrada may be moving up, there's more money at super flyweight now than there was before. I think Wangek is likely to probably move back down to super flyweight and try to get it on with some of these guys. So then after that, he fought Jose Salgado, was winning clearly. It wound up being a technical draw because it was another fight that got stopped off of clashes of heads, but it was a technical draw because 4 rounds hadn't completed. Cuadras basically won every round up until then. That was pretty much it. Salgado, incidentally, wound up fighting Wangek in his next fight, and Wangek knocked him out, I believe, in the 4th round, if I'm remembering correctly. Cuadras, of course, went on to defeat Marvin Mabaet. After that, high-level contender. This was in Washington, D.C., incidentally. Then fought Luis Concepcion. Luis Concepcion, who is a former flyweight champion, a guy that a lot of people remember from his 3 wars with Hernan Tyson Marquez. He lost the first 2, wound up defeating Tyson Marquez in the 3rd fight. Also engaged with in tough fights with several other fighters. Concepcion is definitely one of the highest ranked standbys of the flyweight and the super flyweight division, probably of the last 5 years. One of these guys that is another knockout artist, a guy with a big one-shot power. Not necessarily a combination puncher, but just big one-shot power. Cuadras is able to take a couple of shots from him, took him well, proving once again that first of all, it's not hard. It's difficult to hit him, and secondly, even if you hit him, he's not going anywhere. He has a good chin. He'll answer right back with flurries and combinations right back at you, looking to try and get the judges back on his side, trying to keep you from winning any rounds at all. And he did so with to a good degree against Concepcion. He wound up winning that fight 118 to 110 on one card and 117, 111 on the other 2. Clear victory for Cuadras. And of course, the Concepcion fight is the other one, along with the Wangek fight, where if you're looking to see what type of game plan Cuadras will probably use against somebody like Roman Gonzalez, I think the Concepcion and the Wangek fights are the perfect fights to watch. He was very mobile in both of those fights, very much on the stick and move. Would throw combinations here and there in terms of if he got hit with a good shot from Wangek or Concepcion, he would immediately try to respond with 2, 3, 4 punch combination, and then get out of dodge, move out, shoot off to the side, try to get to a different positioning in the ring, and force his opponent to reset their own feet, reset their own offense. So that Cuadras is he's a guy that's able to hit on the move, as well as hit in the pocket. He's very skilled at being able to move both his hands and his feet at the same time. And I've even said in the past, he's got feet like Lara and hands like Canelo, because he has the total package. He's not a guy that just is either moving his hands or moving his feet. He can move both at the same time. He can throw punches on the run, throw punches going backwards, throw punches coming forwards, and he's very, very well versed and very multi-talented in that way. His wins over Dixon Flores and Richie Meprenum are also good ones to watch if you want to see him be able to outclass a guy. Those are fights that were, and the victors let the fight as well. Those were fights where he was able to just pretty much cleanly outclass and school his opponents. Yes, they were able to land a little bit here and there on Cuadras, but none of them necessarily possessed the power to really give Cuadras that same level of pause the way that Concepcion and Wangek did, where he was extremely defensive against them and really was trying to spoil their offense as well as get off his own offense, as opposed to with Meprenum, Flores, Zaleta, and even Coquieto, was really able to overwhelm them entirely. Like they couldn't hang with him defensively or offensively, and he was just able to conclusively outskill and outwork them. He was just a clear level above those fighters. The other guys presented more of a physical danger to him. So, basically just to give a quick rundown, fights that I would suggest you watch if you really want to know what Cuadras is about and the type of style that he'll take into an elite opponent, an elite offensive opponent like Roman Gonzalez, Wisaxil Wangek, a.k.a. Sisakit Sorongvisai. I'm going to list them down in the description box as well. His fight with Luis Concepcion, his fight with Victor Zaleta. Those are the three major ones that I would suggest you guys watch, get a good bead on the type of style that he brings. And if you want to research further, of course, I'd say the Richie Meprenum fight as well as the Coquieto fight are solid ones. Coquieto was a pretty solid boxer in his own right, and he was able to outslick him. Richie Meprenum, a guy that's a pretty fair contender, a guy that had previously fought Juan Francisco Estrada, got dominated by Estrada, went on to fight Carlos Cuadras, got dominated by Cuadras. Just kind of a comparison example right there, showing that Cuadras is definitely, at the very least, the toughest opponent that Roman Gonzalez will have been fighting since his first fight with Juan Francisco Estrada, which is the one fight that most people will cite in terms of him actually having difficulty with an opponent and potentially even losing, in terms of some people scored the fight for Estrada. For me, it could have gone either way, but Estrada definitely is the top rival for him, and Cuadras, considering the level of opposition that he's faced and managed to defeat, and considering things like Meprenum, for instance, the fact that he's been able to outclass the guys that are solid contenders, as well as been able to outclass established champions like Wangek and Concepcion, shows that he's a quality fighter, a quality boxer, very high skill level. He's not just pulling off all these skillful maneuvers against chumps, against tomato cans. He's pulling off these skillful maneuvers in high level fights against elite, top of the line opposition. So that's just a quick overview of Carlos Principe Cuadras. Very tough, skilled opponent, and I think definitely a big threat to Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez going into this fight with him. He's my number 2 fighter at super flyweight, but I actually even considered him moving him up to number 1 at super flyweight, considering now it hasn't necessarily been as active as he probably should be for a champion, although it is due to hand injuries, but at the same time Cuadras is racking up solid win after solid win, and that can't be denied either. But Cuadras is at very least the number 2 fighter of the division. Could arguably be the number 1 if he defeats Gonzalez. I'm absolutely ranking him number 1 over now Inoue, and he would definitely deserve it. Just a solid fighter, a guy that's definitely underrated and just underserved in terms of most of the media. So that's Cuadras. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.